since 5, Southern California wildfires continue to rage, and those who have lost their homes will be looking for insurance payouts.
However, with that much money being paid out to victims, what could that mean for the future of insurance industries across the nation? WGEM's Zeke Shapiro is live in Quincy now with what effect that will have on you. Zeke?
The sheer scale of the devastation means a lot for everybody here in the tri-states, despite the disaster happening all the way across the country. And the sheer scale of the disaster also means that insurance companies will need someone to cover their costs. And that someone may be you.
It will have an effect, unfortunately, on all of us.
For tri-state residents, 2025 is not looking like a good year in terms of insurance premiums due to the ongoing disasters like the fires in Southern California. The reality of the situation means rates are going up.
Well, hopefully we'll still be nothing more than 10%. That would be a target. My personal target is not see them go over 10%.
Insurance companies don't have unlimited money. So how can these entities gather the money to pay out their customers? Surprisingly,
insurance companies, they go out and they acquire insurance.
In other words,
it's called reinsurance. It's a way that they can spread the risk out to a larger number of investors.
Many of those reinsurance companies have a stake in the California markets and those affected by the hurricanes in the south.
As those claims come in, the reinsurance companies have to increase their premiums.
To put it simply, you pay the insurance companies' premiums so they can cover their own premiums. It's a full circle situation that has tri-state residents worried.
They're not going to be able to bring it back down ever, as far as I can see. And if there's any more major catastrophes, it'll just be that much worse.
And adding insult to injury, the insurance markets seem to be going in the right direction.
We're starting to see some glimmer that it was going to get better about sometime in the first 6 months of 2025, but that was all pre-California wildfires.
And for insurance holders who are hoping to save money on premiums in 2025, the wait will have to continue even after the fires subside. Progressive agent JT Dozier told me that he does hope to see insurance premiums balance out and maybe even decrease in the coming months. However, he said that it all depends on how the situation unfolds in Southern California. Live in Quincy, Zeke Shapiro, WGEM News.
All right, thanks, Zeke. Dozier also says insurance companies may start to increase their limitations on who and what they cover.